Well, good.
We'd go up to Dunk City and play the other Catholic schools. They're big Catholic schools, they just kill us. We had one 8th grader in Lynn, Missouri dunk on us. In 8th grade.
God is blessing.
They drove to the game, too.
Okay, Mayor.
We're ready.
We're ready.
Good evening, everyone. I think we have, Ron, is that you? Someone from the Ministerial Alliance?
So let's pray. Father, we just thank you for this beautiful Christmas season, Lord. We thank you for the leaders of our community gathering and investing their time as they discuss important business for our community, Lord. Help us to be a community that just shines for you, Lord. Just bless each of them, bless their families, Lord. Be with them tonight in the meeting. Bring your peace upon this meeting and our community, Lord. Let us just have a wonderful holiday season. We thank you and we just praise you. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
I'd like to officially open the December 21st meeting with a pledge. Marie?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We have no public hearings scheduled for tonight. We do have a special presentation. Our good friend Chris Tatham from ETC. John, would you like to make an introduction, or should we just have Chris dive into it?
Let me give just a real brief introduction. We received back in spring, I think it was, our biennial survey results, and you might recall that. We've been working with ETC, Leisure Vision, and Chris for, gosh, maybe almost 20 years or so. And the results this year were outstanding. We've always had good results, but this year they were absolutely outstanding, and we shared those with the council and the community and let employees know how much that was appreciated. And then we sort of put that on the shelf and didn't give it much thought. Department directors actually used those survey results throughout the year. But then we received a letter from Chris about a month ago with an award that their company has come up with. And with that, I'd like to turn that over to Chris, who's going to participate via Zoom to share a little insight into this award.
Cool. Well, it's great to be here with you tonight. I've been coming to Rolla, I guess, over the last 2 decades, and Rolla's consistently been one of the top performers in the survey that we conduct regularly. One of the things we found out, though, this summer is we didn't have anything to do for about a month. So I decided to have our staff, who was unengaged during the initial shutdown, take a look at every survey we had done from 2017 until last spring. And in part of that process, they reviewed the results of more than 450 communities. And from that, they identified what standard distinguished the top 10% with regard to overall value of city services, the overall quality of services, and the overall quality of customer service. What I'm pleased to let you know is the city of Rolla was one of 16 cities that reached the mark. We selected from about 200 that had done the survey during the previous year, and you were in the top 16 in the nation because of your commitment to excellent customer service, value for taxes, and overall quality. In addition, it's really a privilege of mine to be able to point out that the weight of that crystal trophy, which I believe is there with you, is 11 pounds because there were 11 communities that did the survey the very first year, and it just so happens Rolla was one of them. So it's a pleasure to have been with you for all these years. It's a great honor for me to see how well you've done, and I certainly wish you the best moving forward.
Thank you very much, Chris. I'd like to show the award. This is a big deal. RD, this is a big deal, seriously. I'll read it. The top 10% of all local governments in the United States for the overall quality and value of services provided to residents, a national performer. You know, an award like this, an honor like this, takes a few things. It takes a lot of people working together. It takes strategic thinking by a lot of people. It takes vision. It takes planning. And there's enough thank yous to go around to a lot of people. I'm going to start with councils. I want to go back at least 10 councils, maybe more, because many of the things that we see, these surveys are done every couple of years, but the big hitters, the big things we do, whether that's parks or streets or things like that, these are multi-year projects. They're big-ticket items. So we want to recognize at least the past 10, maybe 15 councils for their strategic thinking and their good decisions. I want to thank City Administration, City Administrator Butts, and department heads. I want to thank you because they're the ones that interpret that data from our citizen surveys. They're the ones that come up with the recommendations that eventually comes to council. They're the ones that put all of the hard work into making those things happen. And those are the individuals that instill the culture, and the culture with our employees that is going to be citizen or customer first. And then I want to thank all of the rank and file, every single city employee, because those are the ones that are on the ground. Those are the ones that interact with the citizens on a daily basis, whether that's an inspector for city codes or the solid waste department or people that are in the streets, but it literally everybody. And it really does, again, it is a big deal, and we should all be very, very proud. So I'm going to stick this up here, and please, after the meeting, take a good look at it. John or Chris, do you want to add anything?
No, I think you said it well.
Yeah, I just say congratulations. It truly is a feat, not to be minimized when you look at the data is based on 450 some communities around the country. It truly is an accomplishment. So again, congratulations, and thanks for letting me be part of it.
Thanks, Chris. Happy holidays.
You too.
Old business, we have one item, which is an ordinance authorizing the execution of agreement with Skyscraper Marine. Darren?
So at the last council meeting, council ordered the bid with the low bidder Skyscraper Marine LLC, doing business as Tubbs and Son Construction. So tonight we're asking for a final reading of the ordinance to authorize the mayor to enter into a contract with the low bidder for $158,295.50. Any questions?
Questions for Darren? David?
I just have a quick question. What do you think the time frame is for them in terms of, is there a date that they have to have it done by? What do you expect that they would be taking
They
care
have
of
to be
it?
done by April 1st.
Okay.
Any other questions for Darren? If not, final reading, please.
An ordinance authorizing the mayor of the city of Rolla, Missouri to execute on behalf of the city of Rolla, Missouri, a contract agreement between the city of Rolla, Missouri and Skyscraper Marine LLC, doing business as Tubbs and Son Construction, Lawndale, Missouri.
Is there a motion to approve?
Make a motion. Second.
Motion made in second.
Was-
Deanne was the second.
We said it at the same time, whatever.
Roll call vote, please.
Bush,
Yes.
Schott,
Yes.
Bruder,
Yes.
Schneider,
Yes.
Allen,
Yes.
Murphy,
Yes.
Lyons,
Yes.
Crowell,
Yes.
Florence,
Yay.
Ricketts, Higgins,
Yes.
Everly,
Yes.
Yes.
12 ayes.
Ordinance is approved. Moving on to new business, we have one item, which is a resolution authorizing the execution of a real estate agreement.
Just for a very quick review of some history on this, and this really came to light in the last couple of months as a result of a real estate agent reaching out to us. But in 1974, we were able to find a deed where the city acquired Lot 14 of the Frisco subdivision. We can't find in the record any good reason as to why that was done, but in 1977, the city then turned around and deeded Lot 14 to the home, single-family home at 1612 Heller Street on Lot 13. Apparently, part of the home was built over that lot line and intruded onto Lot 14. So the city council at the time agreed to convey by deed Lot 14. Didn't appear that they sold that for any value, but they added an interesting clause in that deed, and it said that if there was any expansion or work done on that home beyond the footprint of the existing structure, the Lot 14 would revert back to the city. So we've had some conversations with the real estate agent representing a buyer for that. After some give and take and some discussion back and forth, we have presented a resolution for council consideration that would authorize the mayor to execute the documents necessary for this conveyance. It's a real estate agreement and a quitclaim deed that basically just removes the city's interest or claim to that property. We're going to receive $1,500 for that, and in exchange, the buyer is willing within 90 days to clean up the yard, and the property's in pretty poor, rough condition. And then by spring, we'll obtain building permits in order to do a renovation of the property. So we have that resolution for council consideration tonight.
Any questions for John? If not, can we read the resolution?
A resolution authorizing the mayor of the city of Rolla, Missouri to execute on behalf of the city of Rolla, Missouri, a real estate agreement releasing a deed restriction on Lot 14 of the Frisco addition to Stephen Farley.
I move to propose the resolution pass.
Second?
There's a motion and a second. Roll call vote, please.
Lawrence,
Yay.
Powell,
Yes.
Murphy,
Yes.
Schott,
Yes.
Schneider,
Yes.
Bruder,
Yes.
Allen,
Yes.
Higgins,
Yes.
Everly,
Yes.
Lyons,
Yes.
Olin,
Yes.
Yush,
Yes.
12 ayes.
Resolution is approved. We do not have any claims or fiscal transactions tonight. Moving on to mayor and city council comments. I have two. The first is, I'm asking your advising consent to reappoint Mr. Bob Anderson to the Planning and Zoning Commission. Bob has been a longtime member of that particular commission.
So moved. Second.
Motion made in second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Thank you for that. The second, I would like, as has been customary the last some odd months, is to go over the local COVID statistics. These are as of Friday. The next set of data points we get will be tomorrow. So as of Friday, the number of cases to date of the PCR test is 2,400, which is up 68 in a period of 3 days from Tuesday to Friday. Using the antigen test, the cumulative total is 650. That number is up 61 individuals or cases in a course of 3 days. The total number of active cases in Phelps County is 374, which is up 36 from Tuesday. Sadly, the number of Phelps County deaths is now up to 89, and that was up 8 deaths in a 3-day period. Let's think about them in our prayers. Phelps Health, there are 27 admitted, 5 on a ventilator, 8 in ICU. Rolla Public Schools has 6 students that have tested positive and 4 staff. Those are active cases. In Missouri Science and Technology, the total cases to date is 449, with 67 cases active. I don't know which one. It wasn't my place to ask, but I think they have a fraternity or sorority that's sort of fallen off the wagon and getting some proper attention. So those are the COVID statistics. Are there any council, city council comments? David?
I just have a quick one to mention. You did mention S&T, and I know there's been a lot of talk starting in June, July, August, when the students were going to come back. And I just want to say a thank you to the school and everyone involved with their response. I think MS&T has been a model for other universities of how to do a very good job with the things that they've instituted, the way they've set up classes, all the different components that go into what they've done on campus. And I think they've done a very good job of keeping cases low. And so I just wanted to say a thank you to them. We as a city appreciate it. I know when we started talking about this back in April, May, it was a big concern. The mayor and John Butts had mentioned that, and we're very thankful that the university has taken this seriously, and all the students have, and the faculty and everyone involved, and just that we're sitting now at a place where, yes, they still have some active cases, but certainly not the kind of outbreaks that we've seen at other kinds of universities and stuff, and situations like that. So I just want to say a big thank you to the S&T and everyone who's, from the chancellor all the way down to every one of the students, for being part of that effort and helping S&T and the city of Rolla.
Thank you. Any other council comments? Before I move to citizen communication, I just want to move up comments to the good of the order. And before I turn it over to council, I just have one. You know, for Christians, this Friday is a very important event. And this past year has been challenging for almost everybody. COVID, loss of jobs, kids at home, mental and physical stress, nasty politics, elections, hoaxes, and even locally the controversy dealing with our mask ordinance. And I asked members of our community to just take a step back this week and focus on the true meaning of Christmas. And let's just try going into the new year to turn down the hostility just a wee bit if we could. Any other council comments? Carolyn?
I had a constituent contact me about the number of panhandlers here in Rolla, which, again, with Christmas, people are having a hard time. But the issue seems to be, from their perspective and some others that he had talked to, that, you know, there are other sources. There's the Ministerial Alliance, there's Grace, there's Salvation Army, there's food pantries, there's Goodwill. There are other places to get help. Now, whether they're going there or not and then can't get anything, I have no idea. I just know that, I know even for myself, there's times I almost feel guilty because I have to pass them by, but I know one time, early on when I came here, I did hand a $20 bill to somebody, and I found out later through just somebody I knew, it wasn't even a friend, but that they went and bought a bottle. Now, I'm sure not everybody does that, but it makes you wonder, are they there just for whatever the free handouts are? Do they really need? And I'm sure there are some that do, which makes it bad for the ones that are doing this just because they don't want to hold a job or whatever. And I understand, I don't agree, but the question was, can the city do anything about that? I know there are 2 entrances to Walmart now. There's several places around town where I've never seen them before, and they are now. And it.
Well, I don't know, Carolyn, in terms of help, but in terms of where they're at, there's a big difference between whether they're on private property or whether they're on public right-of-way because of the First Amendment. You want to expand on that, Lance?
There have been a number of cases, and essentially, was it 4 or 5 years ago now?
Mm-hmm.
There was an attorney from Franklin County that was coming and had contacted us, and also was also panhandling to support his law practice. He was essentially trying to catch municipalities trying to violate his rights. All of the Supreme Court cases, unless you can tie as a danger to the community, you're not really allowed to prevent people from panhandling. It's a freedom of expression.
So if it's on public property, it's illegal.
No, public property is legal.
You just can't do it from the roadway. The right-of-way, public right-of-way. So you can be on public property. You can't be in the street.
So that 5, 6 feet, 10 feet, whatever on
Right.
the side of the road, they have their First Amendment rights. If they're on private property, then I presume it's the landowner.
Correct.
That could call and say, hey, there's somebody.
The private landowner can always remove people for trespass.
I know this constituent made the comment, he says, I always feel guilty, but he says, when I see somebody doing that and they've got
animals with a dog or something, and they've got a cell phone and they're smoking, he says, if you really don't have anything to eat, why do you have these things? That was his comment, so I'd bring it up. Thank you.
Any other comments for the David?
I just have one. I was going to piggyback on what Carolyn said. It kind of brought up a few things. Obviously, the pandemic has not been an easy thing for Americans in general, but there's a few things that have happened and are happening that I thought I'd mention, because I think we as a city and we as a community should have the discussions and try to see how we can be helpful, especially from what the mayor said in terms of the spirit of Christmas and spirit of the holidays. What are we looking at now and what are we looking at the future? Some of those things include an eviction moratorium ending the first of the year, people losing their jobs, unemployment is high. I found out a statistic today that 8 million more Americans have fallen into poverty than were already in poverty since the pandemic started. So that's not something that's happening just in Rolla, it's happening all over America, but certainly it's going to have an impact on Rolla. And I just think that we should get ahead of the curve and start to discuss this in this kind of forum, in our churches, in our citizen groups and organizations. What can we do to help? What are some of the solutions? Because sure, there are cases where people just don't want to get a job, but in this particular situation with the pandemic, a lot of people have lost their jobs or out of none of their own will been sprung into situations that are very difficult. So just wanted to mention that, and I saw that Deanne had their hand up as well and maybe wanted to.
Well, to the point of we have resources here, many of those require means testing, which you cannot always prove when you're homeless or jobless, and other places do discriminate against you based on your sexuality and gender. And to be really clear, addiction is an illness, and we as a country do not provide health care for everybody. We don't do it. We treat these people as if it's a choice, as if they did it to themselves, and that's not true. Healthcare officials and healthcare professionals all agree that addiction is an illness, and it is being made worse right now as people try to escape from their reality of being homeless and jobless. And another thing, I had a phone when I was homeless, and I have an animal for my mental health, which I understand other people who have been homeless and jobless also have for theirs. So how about we show some compassion to these people? If you see somebody on the street and you feel guilty, ask yourself what you're doing for our country to solve this, instead of just looking at them as if they're not a person. Homeless people are people. They deserve human rights, and they deserve to be treated like people, not something you see on the street and just pass by like garbage. And that needs to change in our community, that mindset. Homeless people are people, they deserve human rights, and they deserve better than being talked about up here as if they're not being directly affected by the things we say and our lack of action. And that's it on that.
Thank you. Both good points. Terry?
I just have a quick comment. I know also that the mission provides a wonderful, outlet and a place to be, but their numbers have had to be reduced because of the the distancing, and I believe, and I could be wrong on the numbers, and Marie might know better, but I think they used to allow 60 people per night, and now it's down to 20. And where do those other 40 people go? If they're not in line for an hour waiting, they probably won't get in. So maybe figuring out how to make a bigger place, or a place available for more homeless people to be able to eat and sleep and wash their clothes and take a shower would be great. I mean, there's a lot of buildings that maybe could potentially be turned into, a mission type situation. And I also try, if I see people and they really need food, I offer food. Can I get you a meal? Can I get you food? And if they say, oh, no, then I figure perhaps they want money for something else. But I am more than willing to go get food for people if they're on the street and they need it, because, you gotta eat.
Yeah, the food banks both locally and in the state, have an incredible need right now. So if anybody's contemplating year-end donations, the food banks would be much appreciated. Any other council comments?
I just want to
Yeah.
piggyback on something that you had said about Christmas is coming up, for those that celebrate that holiday. And as you said, there's been a lot of heated discussion and out-and-out anger in our community based on the ordinance and so on. And this is a time of giving and compassion. And whether you believe in a mask or not believe in a mask, I've seen a whole lot of lack of compassion to people who need compassion at this time. And I would go further to say that the statements, especially on social media, about, you know, if you can't go out, stay home, and I can do whatever I want. Somewhat yes, somewhat no. Some of us don't have a choice to stay home. We have to work. And when people go out and say, I don't have to wear this mask, it's about me, it kind of sends a message, especially in our community, about lack of looking out for your neighbors. And I have been blessed by some neighbors and angels in the past few weeks. And we need more of that in our community. We need, instead of condemning people for being homeless or having issues, we need to open our hearts, especially at this time of year, and say, how can I help? Because sometimes that smallest little bit of help is what's going to turn the corner for somebody in need, whether it's COVID or whether it's mental health or something else.
Thank you. Any other council comments? If not, citizen communication. We do have one that has called in that would like to speak. Bryce? If you would introduce yourself.
Hello, everyone. My name is Bryce Crowley. I'm a City of Rolla resident. I'm also an attorney. My house is just up the street. I'm here with Scott McBride, who is also a City of Rolla resident and also an attorney. And we are here.
Hey, Bryce, could I ask you just to take the volume up a notch?
I can do that.
It's a nice way of saying, can you speak louder?
I just don't want to yell.
Old people can't hear good.
I don't know how loud these microphones pick up, so.
Now, if you shout, then I'm going to criticize you for shouting at me.
Fine line I'm walking here. Before I begin, I'd like to tell a brief story about when my family moved here. It was 96, 97. And my dad always told me that the second question that people always asked him after, kind of introducing himself and hey, these are my two kids, what brought you here, and then what church are you going to? And I've talked to other people, and there are many people who have that similar experience. And obviously those questions show that the vital nature that the church has in this community, whatever your denomination is, whatever your religion is. And so, to recap briefly, and that's the spirit I'm coming at this. To recap briefly, November 23rd, obviously, this body decided to enact an ordinance, 4591, which is commonly known as the mask mandate ordinance. I'm not here to actually talk about mask mandates. I'm here to simply discuss the capacity restrictions that mask mandate had on religious services, weddings, and funerals, and that is it. And briefly to address those, as council's probably aware, public accommodations in this city don't actually have a capacity restriction. There was not one written into it. Certain groups of businesses, i.e. personal care services, retail, and restaurants, which do encapsulate a lot of businesses in this community, do have restrictions. Public accommodations actually extend beyond its actual legal definition. You see it mostly in the Americans with Disabilities Act, but it extends to government buildings, things like the library, places like that where the public can go and is invited into. Coincidentally, however, the City Hall and the library are actually not a part of that ordinance. It was exempted out along with schools and Phelps Health and other health organizations that are under different controls. And so in that ordinance, the four categories that the city sort of gave restrictions to are personal care, restaurants, and then retail. Now each of those have their own, and I've placed that up there for you guys to see. There's also one for sports spectators. I'm not really concerned about the sports spectator section, so I'm not going to talk about it. The issue with personal care, with retail is that anybody or any business that is a retail business can have anybody or any amount of persons in their building as long as they're able to maintain 6 feet. Restaurants, you can have groups of patrons dining together. Doesn't say they have to actually be related. It could be strangers even, as long as the next table is 6 feet apart. Moving on, then you have what they call enhanced risk activities, which has a definition within the ordinance. And enhanced risk activities simply mean that any business that brings groups of people together that could enhance the spread of communicable diseases that share the same space. It doesn't really define it other than that. It's fairly vague. But in that same section, it goes on to specifically talk about religious services and then weddings and funerals. Now, religious services are, as you can see, there's a formula for each religious facility. Religious facility is not defined, and so that presents further issues. And so essentially what the formula is a measurement of your building by square footage divided by 30 and then multiply that by 25%. Now, that was enacted on November 23rd. 2 days later, on November 25th, the Supreme Court, the day before, or the night before Thanksgiving, I think it was like 11 o'clock at night, decided to release this bombshell of an opinion, Roman Catholic Diocese of Brooklyn versus Andrew Cuomo, where essentially what they have said is that when you treat religious organizations or the treatment or your religious freedom, your expression of your religious freedom differently than you treat secular activities, such as dining at a restaurant, going into Menards, going into Walmart, all these things, you are in violation of the Constitution. And so we have seen several cases over the last month or so. The state of Colorado had one, the state of New Jersey had one, the state of California has had 2, and the state of Nevada has had 1. Now, not all of these have made it to the Supreme Court. I believe the Supreme Court only dealt with 2 other ones, Colorado and New Jersey. The state of Nevada was dealt with by the Ninth Circuit, but they cited the Roman Catholic Diocese decision. And then the 2 ones out of California, one I think was out of Pasadena, one was from somewhere up north, were dealt with very brief orders from the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals saying, don't redo this again. You've seen how states have reacted to this. Many, including New Jersey and Colorado, have kind of unilaterally changed their restrictions. I think Colorado now classifies religious services and weddings and funerals as critical essential functions with 0 capacity restrictions on them. Los Angeles County just yesterday or Saturday, I believe, it was this weekend, actually did the same thing in their public health order. And so you've seen this sort of seismic shift, this wave of cases in a judicial landscape that up until November 25th seemed like it was fairly clear, but now it's extremely clear. It's just extremely clear in the other way. The new makeup of the Supreme Court is going to rule this way. They've signaled to it. All the lower courts have said, please, go do this on your own. I'm sure there are many more cases, municipalities, states, whatever, government bodies having just seen the writing on the wall and sort of kind of changed their own restrictions because of that. And I want to touch quickly on what the actual restrictions were. In Colorado, they used a seating capacity restriction or a max cap. In New Jersey, and I think it was 50% seating based on your fire code, but I couldn't ever find that actual detail out, so I apologize. In Colorado, they had a 25% capacity limit related, again, I believe, to the fire marshal size with a max of 150 people. If you were to use the formula that you find in the Rolla City Ordinance, that would require an 18,000 square foot building. In California, it essentially was a 50-person maximum cap, and in Nevada, it was 25% of the fire code or 50 max. And I believe to get to 50 people under the Rolla Ordinance, to even make that an issue, you would have to have a 6,000 square foot building. Many churches in Rolla, as I'm sure most of you who attend church know, 6,000 square feet is a lot of space, and not a lot of churches actually have it.
Hey, Bryce, about 3 more minutes.
Okay. And so what the Supreme Court is saying is that if you create a separate class of businesses, if you have this favored class, and I use the word favored class because it's kind of a legal nomenclature, you have this favored class of businesses, i.e. retail, i.e. Restaurants, and you treat them better than you're going to treat churches, you're going to run afoul of the Constitution. And so you need to treat them the same. And I want to be clear, I'm not asking you to put more restrictions on businesses in Rolla. I believe we've all kind of, I certainly heard your comments. I believe that the council certainly realizes that this has been kind of a rough time for everyone, and more restrictions is not going to help the situation with anything that we talked about tonight and make it better. And so I'm asking you simply to move the restrictions from the churches to match the restrictions from the restaurants. And if you want to and I've kind of emailed around. Some of you actually may have seen it. Some of you may not. And I've provided it to your council. You have the new one in your email. This was actually the old language that I used. I actually changed it. I wanted to show you both because I didn't want you to think I was hiding the ball or anything. Essentially, I took the actual proposed language that I'm asking for, takes out this paragraph right here, which is 5. It's kind of the same thing as 4, so it doesn't really add anything. So it's just kind of superfluous, so I just kind of changed it. And this is the actual language. And as you can see, it essentially says that family units can be within, or can sit together, and then the next family unit can be 6 feet apart. There are no capacity restrictions, just like with restaurants, there are no actual capacity restrictions. It's just be with 6 feet apart from the next unit. Again, it's the same restrictions further that the council already has in its ordinance about live music and choral assemblies, preachers and ministers, and also persons who speak as part of religious service. Same thing with weddings and funerals. And again, I add weddings and funerals because the majority of weddings and funerals, especially in this area, do have a religious component. I mean, there's no doubt about that. I know I'm Catholic. There are special masses for both weddings and funerals. And so many other religions are the same, or have similar, celebrations and ceremonies as well.
Bryce, 1 more minute.
Okay. And so basically what I've done is I've added in 2 paragraphs to kind of mimic those. I also want to point out Section 5 carves out the ceremonial portion from the reception. I know that's an issue that appeared, and I spoke on that. And I want to make that clear. It actually carves the ceremony after the reception and allows you to restrict the reception as you already would see. I leave you with a couple of thoughts. First, we've talked about mental health. Gallup recently conducted a poll in November where it showed that, as you can imagine, mental health as reported by Americans since 2019 has gone down. And it's gone down by a significant portion, except for one subgroup. And that one subgroup is those who attend church weekly. Those who attend church weekly have actually reported a positive 4 report from 2019, and they're the only subgroup that Gallup found to do so. And I think that's extremely important to point out, especially as we're talking about seasonal affective disorder, the winter and the natural effects that it has. And so I'm asking that the council enact my proposed amendment. I'll get you this copy so you have it. And I'm asking you to do it with the same urgency that we enacted the original amendment. And the reason why is that this is a constitutional issue. Just like we at the council, or just like the council in the city of Rolla has been changing sidewalks to come into compliance with the ADA standards, the council needs to now comply with what the Supreme Court has said. And I don't think, nobody had, crystal ball to know that this was going to happen 2 days after the original amendment ordinance was passed, but now we know. And we know that this is an unconstitutional ordinance based on the restrictions of capacity of religious facilities, religious services. And so it's simply to come into compliance, to pass the ordinance that allows churches to be treated as the city treats other businesses. And I ask you to do that tonight, considering the Christmas season and Christmas, the second holiest day of the Christian calendar, and which is the largest denomination and religion in this community, is merely 4 days away. And that is that's all I have. If I have questions, I would be happy to answer questions.
Bryce, thank you. I want to compliment you. We're a lot of people in the last couple of weeks, pardon the language, but all they want to do is bitch and moan. I appreciate the fact that you've taken a constructive approach, well thought out constructive approach, and I think council will take it under consideration. I don't know if it's appropriate for us to respond, because in a few minutes, we're going to get collectively the legal review of the ordinance vis-a-vis the subject matters that you just talked about. So I don't know right here and now we're in a position to comment. And lastly, Bryce has sent us some of these suggestions over the past couple of weeks. I missed one nuance that he pointed out to me today. When we talk about weddings and funerals, for example, separating the ceremony, if you will, versus the reception. So one of the things that council can do is look at those separately, as separate and distinct items. So with that, I thank you. Go ahead.
I did want to point out one brief thing. And the weddings and funerals isn't necessarily solely focused on the religious aspect. Obviously, I understand that there are secular weddings and secular funerals. And so it's simply just ceremonial, and it's written in such a way that it should reflect that it encompasses both weddings and funerals, whether those are religious or secular. So that
Right.
needs to be clear. I know
Right, but we're still on the same wavelength as differentiating
Yes.
the big party afterwards.
Correct, yeah.
Okay.
I just wanted, did you have?
I just had a quick question. I know that our subcommittee went over a lot of the details of this, but one of the questions I had, I guess it's a question from your perspective, and potentially anyone on council too, is about singing in services. I know that there's a particular restriction in here about space for choirs and things that in how the distance they need to be. You say the majority of religious services happening in Rolla, the congregation is singing as well, or how does it? Because I'm just curious about.
I think before you answer that,
Okay.
because that came from the meeting that I had with the 15 pastors, preachers, and priests. And that was input that they actually provided. Certain denominations have singing as a bigger portion of the ceremony than others. There was a lot of discussion on the ability to sing with a mask. And there was no real consensus on that. We talked to others, people that run choirs and things like that, and said it's not a problem. But in the discussion that I had with the priests, pastors, ministers, they felt that it would be an encumbrance, if you will, to have it. So the trade-off, if you will, was to double the distance so that the singers would not have to wear a mask. So that's where that
Okay.
came from. So
My question, just to be more specific, is obviously there's choirs that are singing that may have their masks off, it sounds like. Partly about just like the rest of the congregation, are they singing as well in the sense that you've got your mask on, but potentially still
I assume.
loud voice singing? I'm just curious.
well,
about
there's
that.
a lot of discussion because coming as a Roman Catholic, we have a tendency to think of singing as a standalone choir, which, okay, you maintain your distance, whatever. But some of the denominations have much more extensive singing that involve, that are throughout the ceremony itself, where 2 or 3 people, I forget the term, Ron's not here,
Or the
Just
whole
praise
con- yeah.
teams or worship
praise
teams.
teams,
Sure.
worship teams, whatever. So that became a little more difficult to do with the mask.
But often the whole congregation is singing as well. Is that normally correct, or that would still be happening in this situation?
I mean, yeah, I think that's going to happen regardless.
Yes.
Of
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
what version of the ordinance is. I know I let them sing, so I.
Okay.
don't
I was
actually-
just curious to get a feeling for that, so, yeah, thank you.
Okay, so Bryce, we heard you. Again, thank you for the constructive approach. But council really needs to have this next discussion before they can really respond. So, thank you. Any other citizen communications?
Here, if you-
Dane Crutcher. It's Dane, not Dale, by the way, last time.
Oh,
I said
sorry.
Dale. And last name.
It must be that damn mask.
So, it is, must be, but you didn't get my son's name right either, so it happens, must be the family. I'm in Ward 4. I believe my business is in Ward 4. Never heard from Ward 4 council, ever, or anything. 2 entities, haven't heard. Want to say thank you, though, first off. You've endured a lot. Regardless of what decision you make, everybody will not be happy. If you make everybody happy, it's got to be at different times, not all at once. People have different opinions. Thank you very much, John, for speaking with me. I greatly appreciate that. Took my call, called me back, talked with me. And again, I didn't request anybody else at the time. But I have a real simple question, I think. In Section 2 of your ordinances for the city of Rolla, subsection 7, suspension of rules of order when permitted. I could not find anywhere in any of the standing ordinances that allowed for a change in the passage of ordinances or transactions to occur that stated you needed less than 2/3 of those that were present at a meeting in order to change your standard procedures of operation for a passing of an ordinance. The only place I found it actually was in the ordinance that was passed that night. I've asked John if he could help me try and find something else. I haven't. Nowhere. The night that it occurred, standing outside with about a 15-second delay, 7 to 5 said, we want to go ahead and have a second reading. That's only 58.3%. It's not 66. It's not greater than. But yet, you went ahead and had a second reading. And nowhere in the ordinances did it say you had the power to do that night. So my question was that night, I had a gut feeling it just didn't feel right. But I didn't know. 15-second delay, no opportunity to say anything else. Standing out there tonight, 15 to 20 minutes, you saw nothing on the TV. Had to hear what was happening off this TV through the corners. That night, had I known the ordinance, and had an opportunity to say something, would have we stopped, stepped back, and thought, wait a minute, 5 of the individuals, which close to 50%, but not 3, and then you have 7, not 2/3, the ordinance stated, second reading was had. After thinking about it, finding the ordinance and researching it, it bothered me. So I'm asking, what ordinance, what stipulation, what on the books allows for that to occur that night when it could not occur on any others? For other things that have happened.
Yeah, thank you for that.
That's
We
the
did,
question I had.
so you and others have asked the same question, so we did request a legal review. And I'm not an attorney, so I'm going to have Lance explain why we were able to do that night.
There is a number of places throughout ordinances where we have ordinances that conflict with each other. I can't tell you a specific section number. I will tell you that the emergency clause that is in the ordinance that was passed,
Oh, go ahead.
I understand you're going to disagree with me,
No, but I just want to find out where it is. Okay.
but the emergency clause that is in the ordinance itself that is passed, I believe gives the authority to allow for it to happen, especially when you consider the emergency powers that are granted to a city council under a pandemic. So, to answer your question,
Okay.
I don't know that I can tell you a specific ordinance. I can tell you, if I have a statute book, I can show you in, I believe it's chapter 77, but I don't know the exact section number, where it grants emergency powers to city councils to react to pandemics. Certainly, we are in the middle of a pandemic, so with the emergency clause and the ordinance that was passed, as well as the powers that are granted to cities under chapter 77,
Okay, which emergency or which ordinance?
Yeah, so I can give that to you right now.
That's what I was trying to find it. I
It's
haven't
in,
yet to find it.
I'm talking about the ordinance that was passed.
But in the ordinance that was passed, an ordinance is not an ordinance until it's passed.
It's 40, okay, so let me read you,
That's a recital. And again, I'm talking about the chapter 77 grants specific powers to a city for emergency during
So
health
my
pandemic.
question then after that is, then why did the city council at one time specifically put this rule in here to abate what is normal procedure?
They created. There's nothing under the laws of the state of Missouri that requires any specific vote except for a majority to have a second reading. I
So-
understand what you're saying.
So the city of Rolla adopted this and put it into ordinance as the city of Rolla for the guidelines for the city council to abide by. And then chooses to say, that's okay, we won't use it. In effect,
I think I've answered.
that's what and I think we may be going in a circle. and
I think I've answered your question.
So-
I believe that chapter 77 of the revised statutes of the state of Missouri allows the city of Rolla in a pandemic, in an emergency situation, to pass that ordinance. So the only explanation.
And I thank you for your explanation. It's the only one I've received to date, and not necessarily that John doesn't, it's just a matter of at this time, he did not have it. But what's got me the most is here. A council thought it in best interest to say 2/3, put it on paper, put it in their structure. That night, 5 councilmen said, I would like to look at it some more. Thank you for saying I want to talk to my council people because you represent your ward. Unlike other comments I've heard, when you say the public says it, when you hear they elected me, I know what I'm doing, I'll do what I want. When that comes out of someone's mouth on the council, it's not very comforting to me. Did they say it to me? No. Was it said to someone? I have to take them for their word. This is on paper by the city council, how we govern the city of Rolla. That's the question I wanted answered. thank you for your time. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Dan. Would anybody else like to speak? Scott?
Thank you, Mayor, Council, Mr. Butts. So I've been working with Bryce on some of the issues that he presented to you. I do support his amendment as we've kind of gone through this process. And I want you to also know that as an elder in my church, we were taking really heartfelt looks and consideration at how to worship in light of this pandemic. We wanted our congregants to be healthy. We wanted their families to be healthy, and we wanted their businesses and those whom they serve to be healthy as well. So we took steps in place to do those things. But since November 23rd, that has made it much more difficult to be a congregation as we were before. We are trying to work through it. We're trying to be good citizens. We, again, want everyone to be healthy. We want everyone in our congregation and others as well to experience that togetherness that allows them to go out and serve. You know, those of us in the Christian faith are called to serve. We don't just receive a blessing and then just hang on to it. We give it out. Yet when we're not together, we don't know who needs the help. We don't know who knows the homeless person that might need a leg or a hand up. We don't know how to track them down, but when we're all together, we can talk to each other and we can worship together. And when we're done praying and singing and hearing the word, then we can go out and take care of this community like we want to do, like the citizens that we're being called to do so. We want our hospital to run efficiently and effectively for those that are sick. We want the people who work there to be very capable of doing that. But as you heard Bryce mention, the only group whose mental health increased this past year were regular church goers. We want mentally healthy people capable of taking care of this community that they love. And this is the way, now that we have a clear direction from the Supreme Court that says you have to treat churches and religious organizations the same way you treat other businesses, then you have a chance to reset prior to November 23rd and let those in the congregations do what they were called to do. Listen, learn, educate, try to encourage their congregants to follow these rules so that when they do that, they can then go out and serve this community. So I don't want to think there's no zero-sum game here. This is an opportunity. And now it's consistent with what the Supreme Court has said. Beginning on November 25, I can't underscore enough the groundswell of change that opinion had for constitutional religious liberty and the free exercise of your faith. It's an enormous change. And it will have ramifications, you know, Lord willing, beyond COVID. All right? And so I am encouraging you all to take a serious look at Bryce's amendment. Think about it. Reset, at least for the churches, to keep them equal with who they are, or equal with the businesses that you have allowed. And that's what the court's telling us to do. But I wanted to just leave here tonight with a thought of when that's done and people worship together, then this community benefits and is served. And those people that we want to help, wherever they may be, get the help they need from those who truly, genuinely care. Thanks for listening.
Thank you, Scott. You know, I think when you look at people that are pastors, ministers, priests, whatever, they have inherently more compassion than the average guy on the street, right? That's just the profession that they have chosen. When I met with the group, one of the things that became apparent to me is that the churches were proactive very early on. You know, and part of it is, look, some of the denominations have a higher percentage of elderly people and things like that. So I found that the churches were were much further down the line in taking some precautions than others. So, but we'll certainly take under consideration what you're saying, and Bryce. But again, until council gets the legal download, it's hard for us to comment.
I didn't want to leave without a council person raising.
Oh, I'm
their hand.
sorry.
I don't want to.
Yes, Scott, thanks for coming out, Scott. I don't know if we got your name for the records, and I want to make sure that it was, I know she may know you, but I don't.
Lori, you want to put the,
Yeah, I think I got you
there you go. Scott McBride is my name. I apologize for not saying that at the beginning. I know so many.
I know, yeah.
I do appreciate those who I've been able to communicate with and the time that they've taken to listen to me and listen to Bryce. And I really do want to thank you all for this opportunity to participate in this process like this.
And
Thank you all for serving.
what great,
Yeah, Dave.
what great outstanding ward are you from again?
That'd be Ward 3.
There, those guys right there. Yeah. Dave.
I just wanted to make a quick comment again. I just wanted to second what the mayor said. I guess it's true for all of us that if something's brought with, laying out some ideas, respecting the way that, hey, we're all in this together. We obviously don't want to stop anybody from doing anything up here. We all do care about our community. We certainly all know that not having community during this time, because we've had people staying home and not attending church as much and all those things, it affects, like you said, some of the statistics. It's certainly affecting our community and every community in the world, really. And I guess I just want to say it's very much appreciated the way in which you all have gone about bringing this to us, and it's very thoughtful, thought out, and that means something. So thank you for the way you did that.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor.
Is there any other citizen that would like to speak to city council?
All right. Wesley Crutcher. I'm on Ward 5, 590 Basswood Drive. As I told you last meeting, every meeting I'm here, I'm going to bring up the ordinance. That's something I decided to do. Reason being is because I'm not going to let you forget about it, how you went against half of your citizens. As the mayor said, citizens were complaining, moaning about this whole thing. Well, pardon my language, but that's what happens when you piss half of them off. That's what happened. You passed this with a seemingly no input from the citizens.
I'm gonna stop you
Mayor,
right there.
Mayor, you get to shut your mouth right now.
You got 2
interrupt me
minutes,
all
you got
the
2
time.
minutes, and then you're done. 2 minutes,
You
go.
interrupt all the time, so
That's my prerogative.
yeah, no.
2
you
minutes,
interrupt,
2
you
minutes,
stuff up.
2 minutes.
Hey.
Chief, get ready.
Mayor,
Minute and a half.
I got 5 now.
You got a minute and a
5
half,
now.
and you're burning it
You're
fast.
wasting it. Reason being, I'm saying you interrupt and you misconstrue stuff. Last
I
meeting
speak
was
facts.
here- No, you don't. You really don't when you do it. You misconstrue stuff. Like last meeting, when we talked, I said you had invited speakers. I'm not talking about the people you had after that you gave 2 minutes to. I'm talking about the people you had in your committee. You invited those speakers back to explain everything, but didn't have one person you gave equal time to. Not one you gave equal time that was against it. You invited those. Those were invited. Those did not call in. They were a part of your committee to do this. That's why they were invited and didn't call in and ask. Everyone else who was watching knew that's what I meant. You decided last week to say everyone came of their own volition and was not invited. That's just one way you misconstrue words. The other one, let's talk when Mr. Kessinger spoke, not at the special meeting, but the meeting before. He told you about masks and everything, how they aren't the be-all, end-all, how churches were already doing a good job. You immediately, when you asked him for his opinion, and he said churches were doing fine, asked him if you needed to watch out for high-risk venues and such, and specifically pointed at churches, specifically in that statement. The appearance of that, just to let you know, made it look like you were trying to put words in his mouth. That's just information on outlooking. That I'm not trying to hammer you on. I don't believe that's what you're trying to do there, but that is, I'd like you to look out for that. I have respect for what the council does. I have respect for the time you put in there. But when you seem to ignore your constituents, ignore half of them and change stuff, just because you believe you know better, or because you decide we're going to let the health department rule the city. Thank you for your time. Pay attention to stuff.
Let me follow up with this.
No.
I'm not talking to you. Let me follow up with this. The point about inviting speakers. What I did, I didn't feel it was appropriate for John and I just to take it upon ourselves to write an ordinance. So I intentionally asked, maybe that's invited, 3 council people who I thought would have 3 different outlooks on it. We've spent a lot of time talking over the 6 or 7 months about the impact on businesses. I can't invite every single business person to sit at the table and be part of a committee. So the logical thing would be to find the appropriate spokesperson. So who was invited, to use Wesley's term, was in fact the chairman of the Chamber of Commerce and the president of the Downtown Business Association to effectively speak on behalf of the business community. I know for fact that they reached out with many phone calls and a survey to solicit the input from their people that they represent. So if that's what you're criticizing for, I'll take that criticism all day, because I would do the same thing again. I can also tell you that I personally reached out to certain businesses, and I personally met with 15 pastors, ministers, priests for their input. We have an issue that is a difficult one, and it's split the community, 49-51. There's a whole lot of things that this council does over the course of a year or 2 years that's going to be a split vote. So where one person could stand there and criticize me, you actually, he's criticizing you because it's your ordinance and you voted on it, but he's criticizing you for not listening to half of your citizenry. Well, I guess I'll flip that around. You listened to half the citizenry. So maybe he's still out there listening, maybe he's not. I'm sure we'll see him in 2 weeks.
You might just come.
What is this?
He's really talking about the speakers at the public hearing.
Okay. All right, so John's pointing out the other quote-unquote invited speakers were from Phelps Health and the Phelps County Health Department. Like any other subject, there's not one medical doctor up on this stage here, so I think it was logical to have subject matter experts. And those are the doctors on the front lines, those are the pulmonologists, and those are the people that work and do this for a living at the health department. So they weren't necessarily there to advocate, they were there to provide facts, which I think they did. So again, if you want to criticizing me for inviting them, so be it. I got broad shoulders. Any other citizens? Yes, sir.
Not sure where the microphone is, I'm sorry.
They're both on the side, but just speak loudly and they'll pick them up.
Excellent. Sorry. I do appreciate what a city council does and such and that. Me personally, I believe cooler heads always prevail. So I just have one question for more or less each individually, one of you. What percentage, since the ordinance has been passed, have you canvassed for your community? Because obviously it's a heated topic. Obviously you've gotten probably a lot of praise and probably a lot of criticism about such. Have you reached out to the entirety of your community? How much of it have you actually reached out to? Does anyone know if they...
I'll give you a personal answer, and I won't speak for any council person. They're free to on their own.
I appreciate it.
The first week was horrible, okay? And I won't use the language here and now that I really would like to use, and I don't appreciate the threats that I got, written threats that were given to the police department. However, after that first week, as I got out and about and talked to people, I found, quite frankly, that citizens, Rolla citizens, were generally okay with what were done. Nobody likes to be told what to do. I don't like to be told what to do. But I think in the big picture, and you look around at what's happening in the world with COVID, I found that after week 1, more people were okay with what we did than the flip side. That's a personal opinion. I'll let council speak for themselves.
Real fast, if I could say something as
Yes.
well. And I appreciate that you're listening around the community and stuff like that, but as opposed to anecdotal here and there, I noticed this and that. And again, you don't have a ward itself, but for them, their specific ward, what percentage of the people have they reached out to in their ward just about this?
Yeah, I'll have to let them answer it. I can't answer your question.
I have a quick question for you in response to that. Do you kind of know a little bit about the job here, and in terms of, do you happen to know if, like everybody on council, this is their main job or they have other jobs? Do you know anything about that?
No, I do not know myself.
Okay. Most everybody here has normal jobs and normal work schedules. Do we try to gauge opinions and take input and gauge all that? Yes. Can we knock every door? Maybe I'm not speaking for Lister here, but can we knock every door for every issue, or even for all the contentious issues? I don't know, with, trying to put food on the table for our families and this kind of not being, a normal job. It's not like we're Congress people where that's like our job.
Right.
Or state legislature where like that's kind of our job.
Right.
We have other things that we have going on. We certainly, Mayor and John Butts, let me just say, and everybody on that committee took a lot of their time, a lot of it, to consider as much as possible from the community, all the input. We certainly, my email box was overflowing, couldn't respond to everybody. I certainly couldn't knock on every door. I certainly can't right now knock on every door. So I guess my question to you is, what are you kind of expecting of your council people? Do you think that every one of us here should probably knock the door for this and every issue, or just this issue, or what are you kind of going toward?
For something that is contentious as it is, even something simple as a Facebook page for just your ward, maybe putting out a poll or something or other, something similar
Right.
To that. It would make it really streamlined, really easy. Hey, I got a question for all you all. What do you think?
Sure.
And it'll say there's this many participants, which is just however many people are in your ward. You know the people, I'm sure. Email addresses, whatever it is. Being able to poll in that way, it doesn't, you don't have to go door to door or anything like that. Digital age is really super helpful.
So social media poll would probably gauge the opinion of our wards correctly in your mind?
I don't like surveys, I guess is the
Okay.
correct word. I want a total poll, this many people said yes, this many people said no, and this many people didn't answer.
Right, and so those folks on the Facebook page, I would probably go through each background and like try to check if they're in my ward or not. Like, I would do a bunch of research to figure out that it's not a bunch of other people voting. The folks that are kind of maybe over the 50, 60 range who don't participate in social media, I wouldn't ask for their opinion because they wouldn't be on the poll. So that would kind of give me a pretty good idea of what you're talking about.
I don't quite understand the 50, 60 range. I'm sorry.
Well, I'm not saying that people who are over 60 don't use Facebook. I guess what I'm saying is there's certain people in our community, some of them older, maybe don't have a computer, that don't use Facebook. And those people are my constituents too, and all of our constituents. I guess my point is, you mentioned the Facebook page as a way to gauge the feeling of our wards. I'm kind of questioning if that would be giving us the results we want in terms of, you could get on there and vote in my ward 20 times, whatever, on the poll maybe, and you may not even be in my ward. So then I guess I have to go through. It seems like an awful lot of culling out and figuring, is that person who voted in my ward? And maybe there's most of my ward who doesn't have social media, so.
Let's wrap this up.
Yeah, exactly.
I'll tell you what I experienced in 20 years. When people have something on their mind, they're going to tell you. They're going to call you, they're going to text you, they're going to email you, or when you're at the post office or Walmart, they're going to corner you and they're going to tell you what you think.
Right.
There you go.
I do want to prevent that, though, because, again, I appreciate cooler heads prevailing. People who are very vehement one way or the other isn't necessarily what needs to be heard. Me personally, I believe the majority needs to be heard, not necessarily the loudest people. And the loudest people will be the people that get in your face and corner you and different things like that. One way or the other, whether you were for it or against it.
The challenge with a contentious issue like this, when I first came on council over many years ago, somebody gave me a good piece of advice. And they said sometimes the right answer is not the most popular answer, and sometimes the most popular answer is not the right answer. And when you got an issue like this, that's 50-50, 51-49, it is what it is. It's a tough one.
I think your point is well taken. I certainly encourage everyone in my ward to contact me in whatever way is best for them. If that's social media, if that's phone call, if that's email. I can say that I do my absolute best, certainly to read everything, but attempt to try to get back to folks. So I think your point's well taken, and I think that the cooler heads also should reach out to every one of us in a respectful way, which is, like you've done, very appreciated.
Thank you.
I would just add, I'm trying to find it, it's not popping up quick enough, but Phelps County Focus did a survey, and it was significant. I don't remember if there was like 3,000 responses on it. It was a staggering number. It came out 52-48 against it. It was done.
Is the seventh of the community, right?
I'm sorry?
It's a seventh of the community, 3,000 people, right?
Yeah.
Probably some county voters.
I mean, it's a very large turnout for that kind of thing.
I mean, people from all around the world could vote on it.
Right. They did have a ability to limit people to just one vote on it, but that's an effective way where the media plays an important role of sort of providing it, and they did. I just can't find the details on here, but one of many ways of which to get input. But
and again, I appreciate you reaching out and asking them now to reach out to you in any way, shape, or form. I really do appreciate that. Again, I am sorry. Me personally, I hate surveys. I hate polls just because they will oftentimes grab the loudest people. There's a lot of times for my school, whenever it says, hey, what did you think about the class? I'm not going to bother because it's another class. If there was a class that I particularly really loved or really hated, then I would fill out the survey, but generally I'm not going to bother with it. That's why I would like a full out. 50% of the people didn't answer. They didn't care one way or the other. 25 liked it, 25 hated it. In that case, if it is half and half of whoever did answer, by all means, vote however you feel like you should. But if half the people aren't voting, maybe you would need to, I don't know, if it's possible to reach out to those particular people, whether it's email, whether it's mail, however you would sort it out. Reach out to them, try and encourage them to voice an opinion on it, just so that we can have a very representative vote on this.
Can I ask a dumb question? And maybe this is a generational thing.
No such thing as dumb questions, sir.
Yeah, there is. Dumb questions are usually asked by dumb people. But I'm intrigued by your premise.
Yes, sir.
That you're expecting these people to reach out. What responsibility is it of the citizen to take an ounce of initiative and reach out to your council people?
I agree. I think it should be both ways.
Okay. Okay, we whipped that one to death. Thanks very much.
Thank you, sir.
Any other citizens? If not, lost track here. That ends the open session. We have a closed session to discuss one legal issue. Is there a motion to go into closed session for something?
Make a motion.
Roll
Or
call vote,
second,
please.
whoever.
Somebody, I don't know if he was in that lobby.
Were you out in the lobby?
He doesn't have a mask on.
Yeah, go ahead. You need a mask. You need a mask. You need a mask, please. You need a mask. There are people here. Pardon me?
You made me wear one last time.
I know, and I stressed the last time that you should have wore it, but,
No, sir, you said I didn't have to wear one.
no, I didn't say you have to wear
Yes,
one.
you-
You have to wear a mask.
Fire chief came out and he said that you said I don't have to wear one.
I don't recall saying that, but if I did, I did. You need a mask. Please, for 3 minutes, please put a mask on.
If I have 911 on the speed dial, I gotta go in my truck, get it.
There's, right in the lobby, sir, there's free mask, or right there's one. I'm not here to judge your opinion, but we have policies and procedures. It's 3 minutes.
Thing is,
All I'm at,
you change it from meeting to meeting.
okay, it's my prerogative, I guess, so I'm just asking.
Like a lot of things, your prerogative.
Yeah, that's fine.
My name is Johnny Jones. I'm living at 206 Brookridge. I was sitting in my house listening to this meeting, and this is mainly directed towards you, Mr. Schott. And you said, I don't know if you're aware of this or not, but I have a full-time job. Yeah, most of you probably do, if not all of you. But you took this job to represent these people. So you still should go out, and I know most of you said this, all right? You feel you don't have to go out and talk to your people and find out what they want. Only one person I know is Mr. Lester right there. The only person I know that will go out and talk to their people in their wards. All right? And also, I don't know what the last update was, but Phelps County newspaper, right before you had the special meeting, 65% says they do not want the mask. It wasn't 51-49. It was 65% when they took a poll. All right? You people are making these decisions based on your beliefs, not the people in your ward. And that's not what you're here for. And that's the reason I'm glad some of the people who signed up to be candidates, because I'm telling you right now, I'm doing everything I can to get most of you off of this. Because you are not representing Rolla. Most of you. I'm not saying all of you, but most of you are not representing Rolla. That's all I got to say. Thank you.
Thank you, and I do appreciate you putting the mask on. Is there anyone else that would like to speak? If not, there's a motion on the floor and second to go into closed session. Roll call vote.
Ellen.
Yes.
Ryan.
Yes.
Murphy.
Yes.
Bowman.
Yes.
Snyder.
Yes.
Schroeder.
Yes.
Lawrence.
Yay.
Beverly.
Yes.
Crowe.
Yes.
Schott.
Yes.
Higgins.
Yes.
Caldwell.
I'm gonna,
You might be late on pushing the other side.
I'm gonna move around to the front so everybody can hear me a little better.
Hour and a half, 5 things on the agenda. Oh, man.
Sometimes it's just like,
Enjoy your time with your family, you know.
That's right. Can't complain. You know, I just gotta suffer through.
I'll be right back.
Team of things, and this is our difficulty.
That's right.